Hi, everyone, and hi to the audience on YouTube. So happy you could be here. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from my new novel that I've written second draft now, and it's also my thesis for this University of Guelph MFA creative writing program that I'm in that I'm almost finished with. So if I pass the defense, here's hope. So I'll just dive right in. The first one doesn't need any preamble. Alicia had 2 fingers in my cunt. This reminds me, a couple of content notes. There is some sexually explicit language. Yeah, I think that's the main. Okay. Let's try again. Take 2. Alicia had 2 fingers in my cunt. And it wasn't sexy because she was my pelvic physiotherapist. She sat on a stool at the end of the massage table where I laid on my back, naked from the belly down, with my feet on the table and knees pointing at the ceiling. Her hair was cut in a bob that bounced like a rubber super ball every time she nodded. She was feeling around the inside walls of my vagina with her fingers. "You're doing a great job," she said. "How does it feel when I push here?" I felt a light pressure like a little rodent bumping its nose against my bladder from the inside. "Feels great," I said, immediately regretting my enthusiasm. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't hurt or make me want to pee. I had been incontinent for over a month, peeing my pants every time I laughed or coughed or sneezed or stood up or sat down. "Good," Alicia said. "Now, I want you to imagine that your vagina is drinking a milkshake through a straw." Alicia had already asked what she should call my genitals. I wondered if she asked everyone or if she was being careful with me because I wrote they, them under pronouns on the intake form. I had said vulva or junk was fine. Cunt, pussy, and front hole were reserved for my lovers. I didn't tell anyone. She had said she might need to be more specific and asked if vagina and clitoris were okay. Vagina didn't bother me on an emotional level. Clitoris sounded like clit's repressed gradient, which made me laugh. And laughing made me pee a little bit onto Alicia's gloved finger. I didn't know how to drink an imaginary milkshake through a straw with my vagina, so I sucked in my breath instead. Then I sucked in my belly. "Okay, try this instead," Alicia said. "Imagine your clitoris is trying to reach your anus." I pictured my clitoris as a cartoon character, pulling my anus from a rotary phone in the 1990s, twirling the spiral cord around her finger. "Great," Alicia said. "That seems to work for you. Now relax your vagina as you breathe in. I know it may seem counterintuitive." I tried to clear my mind of rodents and phone cords and focused on drawing my breath into my belly instead of my chest. My Pilates teacher said belly breathing was supposed to help with anxiety. "Now exhale," she said, "and pinch my fingers with your pelvic muscles." I tried to pinch her fingers with muscles I wasn't sure I had. "Sometimes incontinence is related to personal struggles," Alicia said, pushing her fingers in deeper. "Is anything difficult going on in your life?" I inhaled and told my vagina to relax. So that's one excerpt. And then this next one comes a little bit later in the book. What you need to know is that the main character's name is Sadie, the protagonist, works in a conservatory, kind of like Allen Gardens, and there's a sloth who lives in the conservatory the gardeners take care of. And the sloth has escaped. And the boss, Sadie's boss, has called gardeners from across the city to help find the sloth. When my recent ex, Morgan, showed up to help search for Helen, I felt nauseous with a combination of dread and hope. She swayed side to side, her butch swagger intact, the red plastic handles of her pruners jutting from their holster on her worn leather tool belt. She carried them everywhere. Morgan worked in a park on the other side of the city, so I was totally unprepared to see her. I didn't have any casual conversation starters ready, and my hair frizzed out on both sides of my head under my baseball cap, like Krusty the Clown. It would have been funny if I could laugh without saturating the pee pad that was stuck to my high-waisted white cotton panties. I longed for Helen the Sloth to tell me where she was hiding so I could join her. My boss gathered all the gardeners in a circle. He demonstrated how to shake a tree with a stick so Helen would move if she was up there. Be careful, I said, she's very sensitive. I downloaded a sloth tracker app, he said. If you find her, take a picture with your exact location and text me immediately. Do not try to pick her up. He wouldn't touch Helen himself, ever since he learned that a single wild sloth could have up to 1,000 beetles in its fur. I didn't think the sloth tracker app would be much help. Once we spotted Helen, the search would be over, since she moved slower than a glacier before climate change. I don't know why we can't pick her up. Sloths don't bite, Morgan said under her breath. My boss had remembered that Morgan and I were girlfriends and thought he was doing me a favor by pairing us up for the search. I didn't have the heart to tell him we'd broken up. If he found out in that tense moment that he had missed months of juicy staff gossip, I worried he might fire me on impulse. Looks like we're going sloth hunting together, Morgan said. We're not hunting, I said. I could feel my eyebrows bunched together as my right temple began to throb. If we were still together, Morgan would have told me my forehead wrinkle was showing. Instead, she was texting someone, probably her new girlfriend. Grab a birch branch and follow me, I said, gesturing at a pile of ornamental branches stacked in the corner. Morgan and I were tasked with doing a closer inspection of the indoor tree canopy. The glass ceiling had been open for ventilation that morning with a computer-controlled motor, so Helen could have climbed out. We left it open so she could return if that was the case. Lucky for Helen, global warming had cranked up the temperature the last few years, so May felt more like July. I hoped she wasn't outside, but at least she would be comfortable. Morgan and I got into a search party rhythm pretty quickly. She hit the trees with her branch, and I peered through the binoculars that I kept in my locker. I turned the ring around the lens with one hand until I could see the individual veins of the macadamia leaves 20 feet up. No Helen. Morgan's hands were wrapped around the birch branch like it was a baseball bat. She swung hard at the macadamia tree. God damn it, Morgan, I can't see a thing through these binoculars with those leaves flapping in front of my eyes, I said. Stop hitting the trunk so I can see if Helen is up there. They're not flapping in front of your eyes, Morgan said, but she stopped hitting the tree. After that, we worked in awkward silence. Morgan and I used to stay up until 3 a.m., fucking and talking about gardens, astrology, and exes. We had never been at a loss for words. Now I couldn't think of anything to say. I wanted Morgan to tell me she couldn't live without me, and that's why she had volunteered for overtime to find Helen. I wondered if she felt the sexual tension like I did. When we were dating, she came by to pick me up after work one day and ended up fisting me under the macadamia tree. The conservatory had been closed, but it was still light out. Anyone could have looked in the clear glass windows on either side of the building to see me on my back with my work pants bunched around my ankles, Morgan's hand buried in my crotch, wrist deep. That was the first time we had fucked without gloves, even though there were stacks of boxes of nitrile gloves in the back that we used for watering. She probably had dirt under her nails, but it didn't matter because I needed her inside me urgently. That was back when we couldn't keep our hands off each other, when she thought polyamory sounded like fun. Morgan had kept a bottle of lube at her tool belt, just in case. But I didn't need much of a warm-up that day. I didn't look for dreamy eyes or strong muscles or a full set of teeth in a lover. I paid close attention to the shape of people's hands. Morgan had the fingers of a violinist, and the top of her palms were thick with calluses from 20 years of clutching garden rakes. She used to do live demos at the feminist sex toy store on how to stimulate a G-spot to ejaculation. I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know where my G-spot was until I met Morgan. She was a fucking wizard with those hands. She pounded me so hard that evening, I thought I could feel her fist in my chest. When I told her that, She had stopped thrusting and held her fist still, deeper than seemed possible. "That's because I took your heart," she said. "I'm holding it in my hand right now, and I'm not gonna let it go." That was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. Morgan used her birch branch to poke at leaves on the grapefruit tree, which was covered in sooty mold. After a while, she leaned her branch against the wall and started to cut back the suckered stems of the bougainvillea, which were a vertical eyesore against the domed shape of the rest of the vine. I imagined her stepping on a 2-inch bougainvillea thorn, so sharp it would pierce through the sole of her work boot into the bottom of her foot. She would cry for me to go get the first aid kit. We would sit down across from each other, and I would place her boot in my lap, slowly untying the laces. I would be the one in charge this time. Morgan's phone rang. She answered the call. "Hey, babe, I was just thinking about you," she said. I held my breath and squeezed my eyes shut to keep the tears in. Morgan didn't like it when I called her a serial monogamist, but she had a habit of lining up her next lover when the relationship she was in started to decline. She was still living with her ex when we met, sneaking phone calls with me after her ex went to bed. I guess some people would say that 13 weeks and 5 days was long enough to get over someone. I was pretty sure Morgan wasn't keeping track. And that's all for now. And yeah, keep an eye out for my novel. I'll post about it on social media someday when it comes out. And to follow me, I'm on Instagram, Cafarelli _Toronto.